Zaltzman back in the house, everybody.
Yeah, welcome back.
All right. There's still hope, right? There's still
there's still hope, I guess, in the way that Marie Antoinette probably thought there was still hope when she went for a final stroll through Paris. But yeah, I guess there's a small hope. We do have to rely on the Italians.
How do you feel about that?
Not massively confident. We've got a bit of a tetchy relationship with Italy, really going back to when Julius Caesar thought he'd invade somewhere cold and inhospitable. So
that doesn't bode well.
No, it wasn't ideal, was it? I mean, I like to take positives. That's the thing you have to do in sport.
Naturally.
In 21st century sport is contractual obligation. There were a lot of positives from last night. One, we still finished top of the home nations.
Good point.
Let's cling to that.
Yep.
Where were Wales and Scotland
Didn't turn up.
Northern Ireland? Two, it's only a game.
True.
Let's keep things in perspective. Three, if we do get through, the momentum will be unstoppable.
Absolutely.
There'll be a surge of confidence as we unleash the full beast of modern English football.
One of the producers told me this morning that England at 125 to 1 was the third most popular bet on an unnamed betting exchange this morning to win the World Cup.
Yes, yeah. I think that might be people throwing good money after bad. I guess it's a classic human behaviour. But yeah, it was. I think we're unlikely to win the tournament. I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say that. But I think we had a few tactical issues last night. Clearly, he decided to play Rooney central, and after he'd struggled a bit on the left in the first game, but then he had to move Sterling out, and he'd been effective centrally. In the first game, I think he should have played Sterling central and Rooney central. I think Sturridge is at his best when he's just a bit off the front in that central spot. And I think Lallana could have done a job also knitting it together in that central attacking midfield role. So I think we should have had four guys standing in a 5-yard space.
Would have been an interesting approach to the game.
Yeah, well, it would have confused the Uruguayans.
It definitely would have done that.
And I think we played into their hands by not doing that.
So let's look ahead to the game that Italy must win if we're going to have a chance of progressing, of course, against Costa Rica. We talked a lot about Pirlo, and we'll check in with him in a bit because he's the subject of your head-to-head battle. But let's focus on Balotelli for a moment. I don't know if you heard in our news roundup Balotelli's line about if Italy beat Costa Rica, he wants a kiss from the Queen. How do you feel about that?
Well, I believe Her Majesty has a constitutional duty to step up to the plate here and make that offer even more tempting. You know, if he scores a hat-trick in the next 2 games, frankly, she should give him the works.
You heard Mr. Zaltzman, ma'am. Yeah. She is a fan of the show, obviously.
Massive fan of football as well.
Huge. Costa Rica looked incredibly good in the first game against Uruguay. So it's not really plain sailing for Italy by any stretch, is it?
No, they are a good team. They've clearly got a very good chance of getting through, but they do not. They don't deserve to get through. They should not get through.
Why not?
They have a duty not to get through because, Nat, on the World Happy Planet Index, which measures how happy nations are, Costa Rica is top. It is the happiest nation on earth. They do not need footballing success. They have enough happiness in Costa Rica already. They should share it around.
Share the love a
less
little bit
happy
more.
nations.
Who's number 2 in that index, out of interest?
I don't know.
England rank in the top 50?
It's all about winning, isn't it?
Yeah,
no one remembers the runners-up in these things.
It's true. England probably dropped heavily after last night. OK, Andy, let's look at tonight's 3 games in a bit more detail. This is where you get your chance to play your 3 cards. Unsung hero, breakout star and head-to-head. And it's head-to-head, of course, that's the subject of Italy versus Costa Rica and our favourite, Pirlo.
Yes, the head-to-head I've gone for is Andrea Pirlo versus the concept of time. Because time is a worthy foe, as I'm sure you'd agree. It generally gets much the better of me. They say time waits for no man. It does appear to wait for Andrea Pirlo.
It does, doesn't it?
During football matches. He kind of potters around like an old codger in a garden tending his flowers. And then all of a sudden you realise he's built a skyscraper. I think if Pirlo got on a rush hour tube in London where everyone's crowded in like sardines, you'd take your eyes off him for half a second and you'd look back and he'd have 3 seats and be sipping a glass of Chianti. It's extraordinary. I mean, I find it hard to stay calm at the best of times. When I'm getting my kids ready for school in the morning, it is just sort of 40 minutes of total chaos. And I imagine the Polo house is different to that. I imagine
diametric opposite.
Strolls around and then he just you know, just puts his kids on the ground outside school, kicks them gently, and they just float into the schoolyard. He's a glory. I love watching Pirlo.
That's a beautiful image. Me too, both of us. Right, next up, Switzerland, France. France, of course, your dark horses, Andy. That's going well so far.
Yeah, dark horse. I mean, to be honest, if you're a dark horse in France, you want to be careful and not go near any decent restaurants. But my unsung hero for France is their former manager, Raymond Domenech, who you may remember doing one of the world's most incompetent sports management jobs in history in the last World Cup.
It was impressive.
Where they went to pieces like a teenage jigsaw in a fist fight. And I said a special alchemy in that squad in 2010 that managed to get a load of really good players to hate A, him, B, each other, and C, football. And why he's the unsung hero of this French team is he took them to the very bottom.
Yes.
Where things had to get better. They had to rebound. And the recent pattern for France, they had a final in '98, first round knockout in 2002, final in 2006, first round knockout last time. Clearly, he realised last time, if I want to keep that pattern going, I have to make France as bad as possible now.
Genius.
Then they will almost certainly win.
Smart. I never looked at it that way.
Genius.
You mentioned teenage fistfights. Honduras, Ecuador.
Yeah, I was in a band called Teenage Fistfights once.
I bet you were. Boy band. Honduras, Ecuador probably has the potential to be the most physical game ever played at the World Cup finals.
Honduras, that they like a tackle, but not necessarily involving a ball, clearly. But that was extraordinary. That Wilson Palacios, before he could have been sent in that tussle he had with Paul Pogba in the last match. He was pretty much using him as a trampoline for about 20... He could have been sent off, I think, 5 times for that one incident.
But your breakout star.
My breakout star. Jefferson Montero.
Yes.
He's a 24-year-old. He's already got 40 caps for Ecuador. He's played 3 years in Spain, now tearing it up for Monarcas Morelia in the Mexican League. And I say that just because I really like the sound of pundits when they talk about overseas players I've never heard of. So I thought I'd give it a go.
Yeah.
But I thought more interesting things about Jefferson Montero. Had a very fine game in the first game. The things that aren't actually true about him, he's terrified of picnics. He thinks Santa is a self-publicist, and he has a tattoo saying, "Could I do it on a wet Tuesday evening in Stoke?" And that leads me to believe that he is the kind of player that Premier League clubs could be interested in. I can fully envisage him signing for a Premier League club, having 2 or 3 quite disappointing years, disappearing off the scene, and then absolutely tearing us to pieces at the next World Cup. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
OK, before we wrap, let's take a quick look at our predictions table. Andy, we've got new names at both ends of the table, excitingly. The Guardian's head of sport, Ian Pryor, tops the tree. It's got to be a fix. He's tied with Barry Glendenning on 20 points apiece. Raf Honigstein, also of The Guardian, he's replaced Julian Laurent, the friend of the show, at the bottom of the heap. Raf. There is still plenty of time, though, and here are Raf's predictions for tonight. So please avoid any bets on these results actually happening. All right, that's just about it for today's show. Many thanks to Andy Zaltzman, everybody. Before you go, Andy, give us your prediction for Costa Rica, Italy.
Good news for the Queen, bad news for England. I think it's going to be 1-1.
Oh, breaking my heart. Let us know what you think. What are your predictions for the game? Pop them in the comments below. And don't forget, you can subscribe for loads more World Cup content. Coming up tomorrow, football writer Julian Laurent, the aforementioned Julian Laurent, with his head held high, back in the studio with his take on France, Switzerland. So for that and much, much more, check it out right here. See you tomorrow.